This is part 2 of a series of videos where we're looking at designing and testing a game using MakeCode Arcade. So I'm just going to go through what we've done so far in part 1. We'll look through the design that we've created, and then we'll look at the code that we've already created to implement some of this design. And then we're going to look at how we can implement the rest of our design in Arcade and maybe extend that design once we have that done. So the design we have so far answers a couple of questions: the who, the where, and the what. So the who, we've got two sprites, a duck and a car. The where, they're on a plain blue background. And then the what, so remember the who are the sprites, the where is your backdrop or background, and then the what is the code that will make those characters do things. So what we have implemented so far is that the duck moves when the arrow keys are pressed, so the up, down, left, and right, and the car moves in straight lines from the right of the screen to the left. What we haven't yet implemented is the collision detection, so when the car and the duck collide, there are a number of things that we said would happen. So I'm just going to go to MakeCode Arcade now. We'll have a look at the code we have so far, and then we'll look at extending that to bring in this collision detection. So we're going to go to MakeCode Arcade, and if you just type in MakeCode Arcade in a Google search, the first thing that comes up is arcade.makecode.com. I'm just going to click in there. And again, remember that brings me to here where we have our previous projects, and I can create a new project, but I have my project here. So this is the project that we've already created, the duck and the car. So let's look at what we already have. So on start, set duck to sprite, and we've got a little picture of a duck here. So that's our sprite, our character of kind player. So the duck is our player. We're setting the background color to blue, and we're moving the duck with buttons. So that's our basic duck movement. So we're setting up our player and getting that player to move. Then if we look at the car, on car update every 2000 milliseconds, so that's every 2 seconds, we're going to get a car to come in from the right hand side. So we're setting car to sprite, and again we've chosen this car of kind enemy. We're setting the position of that car to x160. So x160 here is on the right hand side, so the x values go from 0 on the left hand side to 160 on the right hand side, so we're bringing it in at the right hand side. And then we're picking random on the Y, so it comes in at different parts of the screen here, up or down. So it's moving it up or down where it's coming in. And that's just introducing a little bit of randomness into it. Otherwise, it just comes at the same place all the time. And then the duck can just move down out of its way and will never be caught. And then the last thing we're doing is we're setting the velocity. Now remember, at the very end of the last one, we just looked at this velocity, and the velocity was x minus 100 and y 0. And that's to come from the right-hand side to the left. So if we wanted to move it in different directions, you would change those x and y values. We're not going to look at that here, but I will look at it in a separate video. So I want to just show the duck moving. So if I use the up arrow keys here now, the duck is moving up and down and right and left. Okay, so one thing you might notice is he's running off the screen, and I want to stop him from doing that. So if I go into the sprites here, you can see all the sprite blocks, and here I can say set my sprite to stay in screen. So I'm just going to pull that across, move it in under move duck with buttons. I'm going to set it to stay in screen, and you'll notice here there's a little warning message. So it says program error, failed cast on null, and that just means that you don't have a variable called my sprite. So I'm just going to change it to duck because we've called our sprite a duck, and if I click off that now, you'll see that it's fine. So it has resolved that issue. So if I now use the up arrow key, you'll see that he doesn't run off the screen for the up or the down or the left, the right or the left. So for any of you who might have used Scratch before, this is very simple in Arcade compared to Scratch because you'd have had to code each of those separately. Okay, so that is now just that little bit. Now, the next thing we want to do is we want to see if they have collided. So let's just go back to our design again. So we're saying when the duck and the car collide, we want to shake the screen, we want to play a sound, and we want to make the car disintegrate. So again, we're just going to go back in here. So if we go to sprites, and if we come down, you'll see there's different topics here. There's effects, there's projectiles, there's overlaps, and I'm going to take this overlap. So on sprite of kind player overlaps other sprite of kind player. I'm going to pull that across here. I'll just move this over a little bit so you can see it. Now what we're going to say is on sprite of kind player overlaps other sprite of kind. And instead of player here, we're going to say enemy. So we're saying when the player, which is the duck, and the enemy, which is the car, overlap, what do we want to do? So we're going to go to the scene blocks. And if we go to the bottom of the scene blocks, we have camera blocks here. And down the bottom, we've got camera shake by 4 pixels for 500 milliseconds. I'm just going to pull that across. And we can change the number of pixels and we can change the length of time. But for now, I'm just going to leave it as it is. So the simulator has restarted again. And if I move my duck now, you'll see. So you'll see that shake when they collide. Can you see that there? Again, you can see the camera shaking. So again, it's just to have a visual for when they collide. Now, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to play a sound. So if we click on music, and we can just play sound Bading. So I'm just going to pull that across. I can change it. So I can click on the arrow and I can pick lots of different ones, but I'm just going to go with the one that's there. Just move this up so you can see it properly. So again, let's restart the simulator. And this time you should see that it's shaking. But now there's also a sound as well. So it's very visual and you can hear it. You can hear that there is something happening, which is what you would normally have with a game. I'm just going to stop that now while we're continuing to code. Now, the last thing we want to do is we want to get the car to disintegrate when the duck and the car collide. So to get the car to disintegrate, we again go into sprites and we will look for the effects. And here I'm just going to pull across the destroy. I'll pull that over and put it in here. And we're going to destroy, rather than the my sprite, we're going to destroy the car. And we're going to do it with an effect. So the effect that we're going to use is ashes, which is down here at the end. And we're going to do it for 100 milliseconds. So let's see if that works. We start the simulator again. And you'll see there that it shook. You had the sound and then the car disintegrated. And again, the same thing happened there and there. So once they overlap, the car disintegrates. So that's our basic collision detection. So we're making it shake, we're playing a sound, and we're making the car disintegrate. So you can see how easy it is to do those things. I'm going to go back to my design here, and I'm going to put in a projectile. So what I want is that when the B button is pressed, then I want the duck to shoot a projectile. And the projectile is going to go from the duck in a straight line. So it shoots a projectile in a straight line. So that's our design again. So I'm going to go back to Make Code Arcade and implement that coding. So I want to find the B button pressed. So here I'm just going to pull across on A button pressed. I'll change my A to a B. And then I'm going to go back to sprites, and if we go down here a little bit, there's effects, but there's a number of projectile blocks. So again, I'm just going to pull this one across. Now let's look at the difference between the two. So one has a set projectile to a projectile from my sprite with a velocity, an X and Y velocity, and the second one is just from the side. So I'm going to go from the duck because that's where I want it to go from, and then with the velocity. So let's just have a look here. So I'm going to click on the projectile here, and I'm going to make it an orange block. And if I click done down the bottom, then that's my projectile. So that's another character that I have. And instead of going from my sprite, I'm going to go from the duck. And this time I wanted to go from left to right because the duck is here and the car is going to be coming against it. So I wanted to go from left to right. So this time I change my X velocity to 100 and my Y velocity to 0. So I'm going to start my simulator. And now if I press the B button here, you'll see there's orange projectiles coming out. So I'm just using the B button here. And you can see me pressing it there, and you can see the orange projectiles. The last thing I want to do is I want to have something happen when that projectile hits the car as well. So now what we want to do is when the projectile hits the car, we want to destroy the car, but we also want to destroy the projectile because otherwise it will keep going, which doesn't really make sense. So let's look at how we can implement that. Again, we go to sprites. We're looking for the overlaps again. So we're just going to pull this across. Now we'll make a few changes to it like we've done before. So we're saying if on sprite of kind, so this time instead of player, we're saying on sprite of kind projectile overlaps other sprite of kind enemy. Then what do we want to do? Well, we want to go back here and we're going to go to the destroy. So we're going to go destroy, and we're going to destroy the car. So I'll just click on car here with a spray effect. So let's just try the spray effect, and we'll do it for 100 milliseconds. And then we're just going to go and we're going to also destroy the projectile. Okay, so there we go. So now if we just run our simulator again, so this time I'm just going to just sit and wait for a car to come at me. And you'll see there when the projectile, now that was just the duck and the car, so I'll just wait here again. There's the projectile again. Just move back a little bit. I'll just move it. Yeah, so you could see it there. Car came and we hit the projectile. The car with the projectile. So again, we'll just, you can see it there again. So again, when the projectile and the car collide, then both of them disintegrate. So hopefully that has shown you how you can design a very basic game and implement it using MakeCode Arcade. Now I'll do some other videos where I'll talk about the velocity. We can talk about the different kinds of sprites that you can have. We'll talk about how you can create your own sprites and so on. But for now, if you look at the two videos of this second part and also the first part where I went through the basic design and creating the sprites and getting them to move. Hope you enjoy it.